Hans Niemann has been in a great form for a longer time now, and he already won a few nice games in Romania in the Tournament of Peace, for example against Alexander Motulev. But in round 3, he is playing against a legendary player, Grandmaster Vasyl Ivanchuk, and in this game the position next to me arose and it is white's turn. Hans Niemann playing the white pieces had a great move here, an intermediate move. Actually, can you find it? You will see the solution during the game analysis, so make sure to stay until then and check your solution. This being said, let's go to the game. Hans Niemann playing the white pieces starting with first e4, Vasyl Ivanchuk plays e5, knight f3, and now knight to f6, the so-called Petrov or Russian defense. Black attacks the e4 pawn, white attacks the e5 pawn, and taking on e5 is one of the main lines. Then comes d6, an important nuance. You first want to drive the knight away and only then take back on e4, like in this case. And now d4, one of many lines. A few years back, knight to c3 had a very good reputation, but black found ways to get an equal position, so white shifted a little bit away from this move, and recently d4 has been tried a lot. Black plays d5. At one point the knight on e4 must go away or be defended, and it's now also black gained space in the center. Bishop to d3, and now you see why d5 was a useful move. And now a very interesting move, knight to c6. Developing the knight, but also blocking the c-pawn. And white castles, black plays bishop to e7, knight b to d2, a very interesting move. A few years ago, I can remember that almost everybody was playing c4, questioning the d5 pawn. But the trend is knight b to d2 recently. And now black can either retreat to d6, but it's a little bit risky. So taking on d2 is much safer. And now bishop takes d2. And now we see the idea of black setup, bishop to g4. And this is a very important move, because if he doesn't play bishop to g4, then later white might just play, for example, c3, and if bishop to d6 is played here, then moves like h3 might be unpleasant, and now it is not clear where this bishop is going to be a good piece. So Vasyl Ivanchuk did the right thing to play an immediate bishop to g4. Then c3 was played because this pawn was weak. Now it's overprotected. The defender is currently attacked and pinned, so white had to do something. Black castles, h3, bishop h5, and now g3. The move looks suspicious, but it's still theory. Queen to d7. Now we can see h3 is under attack. And now we see white's idea. It was activating the king. And activating the king doesn't only mean that the king is already on g2 compared to the king here, which is on g8, but also that the rooks can go to the h file at any time. And this will be an idea in this game, but we will see. So bishop to g6, bishop to f4, excuse me. Now bishop takes d3, and up to here all games had ended in a draw according to my database on top level. So bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and now this position still exists in the game Giri against Yu Yangyi. a6 was played, and after rook a e1, rook a e8 followed, rook e2, bishop d8, and the game ended in a draw. Here bishop to d6 was played, and this is giving up the control over g5. Here, now white can play knight to g5, threatening checkmate on h7. So black has to react, g6 played, and only now white takes on d6, queen takes d6, and white develops the a rook to e1. Black does the same thing, and now we see that the position is equal, but white has a very interesting plan. h4. And now the game continued with knight to d8, and now h5. And of course, this pawn cannot be taken because there is this checkmating idea. So white is putting some pressure on black, but of course, Vasyl Ivanchuk is a very experienced grandmaster and knows how to defend. Knight to e6. The knight goes back to f3, c6, and now rook to h1. And now we see why white actually took the a rook to e1 and not the f rook. The f rook had the prospect of going to h1 at one point. So now you can see that. And here it is very difficult for black to find the right move, I believe. It might be knight to g7. g5 might still be a playable move, but after knight e5, h6, queen to f5, the position looks somehow ugly. And black has some issues here, because there is this very strong queen to d7. And now queen takes d7, knight takes d7. And in the beginning I asked you what the idea of white is after rook takes e1. So now let's reveal the solution. It's not rook takes e1, because here rook d8 would make space for the king. So the king could go to f8 here if the knight moved away with knight to f6 check. Now king f8, and the king is well placed. But let's go back. In the game followed knight to f6, an intermediate move, a Zwischenzug, like the name of this channel. So here black has to move, and the only move is king to h8, and only then white takes the rook on e1. Now followed knight to e6, and the position is very closed, and it's not clear if white is winning at all. I don't believe so. But here white can play on. So rook to e5, a5, knight to g4, attacking the h6 pawn. And it's probably here where black missed something. Black could have gone king to g7, protecting the pawn, but also providing some coverage to the f6 square. And the position would still be favorable for white, but it's not clear how white wants to achieve something. In the game, king to h7 was played, and this is inaccurate, I believe, because now there is rook f5, and now follows king to g7. Black lost a move here. Rook f6, rook h8, because this pawn was attacked. White plays a4, and now black plays b6. However, this position might already be lost here, because white is going to get very decent play in a couple of moves, because white has a very strong move here. It's f4. G takes f4, G takes f4, and now we see this pawn is going to kick away this knight. Very unpleasant. So rook to c8 played, so oh sorry, wrong color, let's make it green. The c6 pawn is defended, but then still followed f5, knight to g5, and now the rook moved away, so this pawn is undefended. Rook takes h6, and black is down a pawn and the position is completely lost. Knight e4, king f3, rook to c7, king to f4, knight d2, rook to d6, and we see black is in big trouble. Knight to c4 attacking the rook. However, white first checked again, an intermediate move, a Zwischenzug. King h7, and black resigned after rook to d8. And the reason is that, let's say, black plays something like this, then follows king to g5, and now there is this very big knight to f6 checkmating threat. A very beautiful game by Hans Niemann against a legendary player, Vasyl Ivanchuk, who used to be one of the strongest players of his time, and still is a very strong player. But in this game, Hans Niemann proved to play excellent chess, even against the greatest, or one of the greatest player of all time, Ivanchuk. I hope you liked this game and enjoyed the video. In the next video, which I would suggest you to watch, you can see how Hans Niemann wins against a Russian grandmaster, Motulev, with the black pieces, and in very convincing manner. See you in the next video.